I used to believe that family was the one thing money could never change. No matter how difficult life became, I thought blood was stronger than greed, stronger than mistakes, stronger than anything. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. My name is Emma, and for most of my life, I was known as the responsible one in the family. While my younger sister, Rachel, chased adventures and changed jobs every year, I worked steadily as an accountant. I wasn't rich, but I was disciplined. Every paycheck, I put money aside. I skipped expensive vacations, drove an old car, and avoided unnecessary spending. For nearly 10 years, I built a savings account that represented countless sacrifices and sleepless nights. It wasn't just money to me, it was security. It was my future home, my emergency fund, and the proof that hard work could create stability. Then Rachel married Jason. At first, everyone loved him. Jason had a smile that could light up a room. He remembered birthdays, brought gifts to family dinners, and always knew exactly what to say. My parents adored him. My relatives constantly praised him. Rachel finally found a good one, and my mother often said I agreed. Jason treated me like a sister from the moment we met. He asked about my career, listened to my stories, and always offered help whenever I needed it. When Rachel and Jason moved back to our town after a failed business venture, I was one of the first people to welcome them. I even helped them financially. Nothing huge, just small loans here and there. A few $100s for unexpected expenses. Money for moving costs. Jason always promised to pay me back, and I trusted him enough not to keep track. One evening, about 6 months after they moved back, I complained during dinner about problems accessing my online banking account. "It's driving me crazy," I said, laughing. "Every time I log in, something goes wrong." Jason immediately leaned forward. "I'm pretty good with that stuff," he said. "Bring your laptop over this weekend. I'll help you sort it out." The offer seemed harmless. After all, he was family. That Saturday, Jason spent nearly an hour helping me update passwords and security settings. I remember thanking him repeatedly because everything seemed to work perfectly afterward. I had no reason to suspect anything. For weeks, life continued normally. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. I was drinking coffee before work when I opened my banking app to transfer money into my retirement account. The balance looked wrong, very wrong. At first, I assumed I was looking at the wrong account. I refreshed the screen. Then I refreshed it again. My heart began pounding. Thousands of dollars were missing. Confused and terrified, I opened my transaction history. The color drained from my face. There wasn't one unauthorized transfer. There were dozens. Large withdrawals had been made over several weeks. Some transfers were for $3,000. Others were for $5,000 or more. The total amount stolen was nearly $48,000. My entire savings account had been drained. My coffee mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook so badly that I nearly dropped my phone while calling the bank. For the next 3 hours, I spoke with representatives, fraud specialists, and security departments. Then one question changed everything. MS Carter. The investigator asked gently, "Has anyone else had access to your banking credentials recently?" My mind immediately returned to that Saturday. The passwords, the security settings, the laptop, Jason. I didn't want to believe it. I desperately searched for another explanation. But deep down, a horrible feeling was already growing inside me. Because the person I trusted most outside my immediate family was the only person who had ever seen those account details. And for the first time, I began to wonder if the smiling brother, in-law everyone loved had been hiding something much darker behind that friendly face. The entire drive to Rachel's house felt unreal. I kept replaying the bank representative's words in my mind, hoping I had misunderstood something. Surely there was another explanation. Surely Jason hadn't stolen nearly $50,000 from me. When Rachel opened the door, she immediately noticed something was wrong. "Emma, you look pale. What happened?" I stepped inside and looked directly at Jason, who was sitting comfortably on the couch watching television. My stomach twisted. "I need to talk to both of you." The smile on Jason's face disappeared for a split second before quickly returning. Rachel led us into the dining room. My hands were trembling as I placed printed bank statements on the table. "Money has been taken from my savings account," I said quietly. Rachel looked confused. "What does that have to do with us?" I swallowed hard. The bank traced the logins. Jason was the only person besides me who had access to my account information. The room went silent. Jason stared at the papers before shaking his head. "Emma, that's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked. His expression hardened. "You seriously think I stole from you?" "I don't know what to think." Rachel immediately moved closer to her husband. "There has to be some mistake." I wanted to believe that too, but the evidence kept pointing in one direction. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of denying every detail, Jason lowered his head. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. My heart stopped. Rachel looked shocked. "What are you talking about?" Jason rubbed his face dramatically. "I was going to replace the money." The words hit me like a truck. Replace it, not borrow, not explain. Replace, which meant he had taken it. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Jason, tell me you didn't." He immediately grabbed her hand. I was desperate. The business debts were crushing us. I thought I could invest the money, make a profit, and put everything back before Emma noticed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nearly 10 years of savings had become a gamble for his personal problems. "You stole from me," I whispered. Jason stood up. "No, I borrowed it. You accessed my account without permission. It was temporary." The argument grew louder. Rachel started crying. Jason kept insisting he had good intentions. And somehow, by the end of the conversation, I felt like I was the one being forced to defend myself. For the next few days, Rachel begged me not to involve authorities. "Please," she said over the phone. "He's already sorry. We can work this out as a family." But Jason had no realistic plan to repay the money. No timeline, no accountability, only promises. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I filed an official fraud report. The backlash came immediately. My mother called me first. "How could you do this to Rachel?" I stared at the phone in disbelief. "Mom, he stole $48,000. He made a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting a birthday." This was theft. But nobody wanted to hear that. My father accused me of destroying the family. My cousins flooded my messages. Some called me selfish. Others called me heartless. One relative even wrote, "Money isn't worth sending family to jail." I wanted to scream. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about trust. It was about betrayal. Most of all, it was about the fact that nobody seemed angry at the man who stole from me. They were angry at the woman who reported it. Weeks passed, and the family gatherings I once loved became impossible. I stopped receiving invitations. Group chats went silent whenever I spoke. I felt isolated, abandoned, and completely alone. Meanwhile, Jason continued presenting himself as the victim. He told relatives that I was overreacting. He claimed the money would have been returned. He painted himself as a struggling husband who made one bad decision. And my family believed him. At night, I often cried myself to sleep wondering if I had lost everyone I loved. But then, 3 weeks after filing the report, my phone rang. The caller was one of the investigators. His voice sounded serious. "MS. Carter," he said, "we've discovered something you need to know." My chest tightened. "What is it?" There was a brief pause. Then he delivered words that would change everything. "You may not be the only victim." Suddenly, this wasn't just a family betrayal anymore. It was something far bigger than any of us had imagined. The investigator's words echoed in my mind long after the call ended. You may not be the only victim. For weeks, I had been carrying the weight of betrayal alone. I believed Jason had targeted me because I trusted him. I thought my stolen savings were the center of the story. I was wrong. 2 days later, I sat across from the investigators in a small conference room. Several folders were spread across the table. The lead investigator looked at me carefully. "MS. Carter, we're still gathering evidence, but we've uncovered a pattern." A chill ran through me. "What kind of pattern?" He opened one of the folders. "We've found multiple complaints connected to your brother-in-law." I stared at him. "Multiple?" He nodded. "There are at least 5 people so far who claim Jason borrowed money, accessed financial information, or convinced them to invest in opportunities that didn't exist." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The Jason I knew, the charming, friendly man everyone loved, was beginning to look like a complete stranger. As the investigation expanded, more information surfaced. An elderly neighbor claimed Jason had persuaded her to invest part of her retirement savings into a business opportunity. A former coworker reported lending him thousands of dollars that were never repaid. A family friend revealed that Jason had used emotional stories about financial hardship to collect money from several people. Every week brought another shocking discovery. The man my family defended wasn't simply someone who had made a desperate mistake. He had been lying for years, yet somehow many relatives still refused to believe it. My mother continued insisting there had to be an explanation. My father claimed investigators were exaggerating. Even Rachel struggled to accept what was happening. Then, one evening, everything changed. Rachel showed up at my apartment unexpectedly. The moment I opened the door, I barely recognized her. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her hands trembled. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. Without a word, I stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table where she silently stared at the floor. Finally, she spoke. "You were right." The words carried so much pain that my heart broke for her. Rachel explained that she had recently discovered secret credit cards, hidden loans, and unpaid debts scattered throughout their finances. Jason had lied to her repeatedly. The man she trusted with her life had been deceiving her for years. I defended him. She whispered through tears, "I blamed you." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Neither of us spoke for several moments. There was nothing left to say. The truth had finally arrived. A few weeks later, investigators completed much of their financial review. The numbers were staggering. Jason's activities had affected numerous people over several years. The total losses reached hundreds of thousands of dollars. When the findings became impossible to deny, the family's attitude changed almost overnight. Relatives who had ignored my calls suddenly wanted to talk. Those who called me selfish now wanted forgiveness. Some apologized sincerely. Others seemed embarrassed that they had chosen the wrong side. My mother cried when she visited me. "I should have believed you. My father couldn't even look me in the eyes when he apologized." Part of me appreciated their honesty. Another part remained deeply hurt, because during the darkest period of my life, when I needed support most, they had abandoned me. Still, the investigation wasn't over. Jason would soon face serious consequences for his actions, but something unexpected had already happened. I no longer cared about proving everyone wrong. The truth had spoken for itself. The family that once treated me like the villain finally understood what I had known from the beginning. I wasn't the person who broke the family apart. Jason had done that the moment he chose greed over trust. And as the walls of his lies collapsed around him, everyone was finally forced to see the man hidden behind the smile they had spent years admiring. A year after I discovered the missing money, my life looked completely different. For a long time, I thought justice would be the thing that healed me. I imagined that once Jason faced consequences, the anger and pain would disappear. But healing turned out to be much more complicated than that. The investigation eventually led to criminal charges. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Jason accepted responsibility for many of his actions. The charming smile that had fooled so many people couldn't save him anymore. The truth was documented in bank records, witness statements, and financial reports. For the first time, he couldn't talk his way out of it. When the case finally ended, some of my stolen money was recovered through court-ordered restitution. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to help me start rebuilding. More importantly, I stopped measuring my future by what I had lost. Instead, I focused on what I could still create. I worked hard, took on additional projects at my accounting firm, and slowly rebuilt my savings account. Every deposit felt like a victory. Every financial milestone reminded me that Jason had stolen money, but he hadn't stolen my ability to succeed. Meanwhile, Rachel filed for divorce. The process was painful, but she gradually began rebuilding her own life as well. Our relationship wasn't instantly repaired, but little by little, trust returned. One afternoon, she sat across from me at a coffee shop and quietly said, "Thank you." I looked at her, surprised. For what? For refusing to stay silent. Tears filled her eyes. If you hadn't reported him, I might still be living inside his lies. For the first time in a very long time, I felt peace. Not because everything had been fixed, but because the truth had ultimately protected both of us. My parents worked hard to repair our relationship, too. Their apologies couldn't erase the months of loneliness I had experienced, but I could see their regret was genuine. Over time, family dinners slowly returned. The conversations felt different now, more honest, more careful. Everyone had learned how dangerous blind loyalty could be. Then something unexpected happened. A local community center invited me to speak about financial fraud awareness. At first, I was nervous. Sharing my story publicly felt intimidating. But after the presentation, several people approached me. Some had experienced similar betrayals. Others admitted they were currently facing situations that felt suspicious. Many thanked me for speaking openly. That night, I realized something important. The worst experience of my life had become something that could help other people. Months later, I stood on the front porch of a small house I had just purchased. The house wasn't enormous. It wasn't luxurious, but it belonged to me. Every brick represented perseverance. Every room represented survival. As I watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and orange, I thought about everything that had happened. The stolen savings, the betrayal, the accusations, the loneliness, the fight for justice. For so long, I believed revenge meant watching someone suffer. I thought revenge meant proving everyone wrong. But standing there, I finally understood the truth. The sweetest revenge wasn't Jason's downfall. The sweetest revenge was my happiness. It was waking up every morning without fear. It was rebuilding a life stronger than the one that had been taken from me. It was finding success despite everything meant to destroy me. The family who once called me selfish had learned a lesson they would never forget. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. Demanding accountability isn't cruel. And speaking the truth, even when everyone turns against you, is sometimes the bravest thing a person can do. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, I smiled. The chapter of betrayal was finally over, and for the first time in a very long time, the future felt brighter than the past.